Chicken Little. And Mr. Speaker, it's not Chicken Little he needs to worry about. It's Andrew Little. That's a...
Now, I say to all members, mainly the National Party backbench, if some of them don't want to be thrown out today, when I'm on my feet, they'll stop clapping, they'll stop behaving like buffoons, and when I'm on my feet, even the Prime Minister will sit down. I believe I'd allowed him enough time to depart well away from the, well, to go on long enough about the question. And when I'm on my feet, that is the rule, or people will leave this chamber. I will not tolerate that again today. Let me make that very clear to both sides of the House. Supplementary question, the Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, since none of the criteria that the Prime Minister read out under Section 17 has stopped his government declining even a single foreign application for land, does he support making changes to the overseas investment framework to ensure that sales of farmland will be declined unless the overseas purchaser also invests in significant further processing of the primary product, creating significant extra jobs?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I thought I made that quite clear in answering the primary question, where I said that the National Government, after review, has decided to make two changes to regulation in relation to economic interests and mitigating factors. They, by definition, Mr. Speaker, are evidence that this government, despite the fact it's only allowed 30,000 hectares of land to be sold as opposed to 680,000, still thinks the law needed to be tightened up.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, because the existing framework isn't stopping sales, does he support making changes to the overseas investment regime to remove the discretion of the Minister to consent to the sale overseas of any interest of 25% or more of a monopoly infrastructure worth over $10 million? If not, why not?
Speaker, no, because that's a really dumb policy. And the reason it's a really dumb policy is it would require Infratil to start selling its overseas shareholding. It would force a New Zealand company that had about 20% of its shareholding overseas, like a Fletcher's, would not be able to borrow overseas. And, Mr. Speaker, as Guy and Esmond approved in the weekend on Q&A, Phil Goff doesn't understand his own policies.
Hillary Cathcart. Hillary Cathcart. Order. Order. I've called Hillary Cathcart.
Supplementary to the Prime Minister. Has the Attorney-General advised the Prime Minister, following his visit to Taipa Bay, Northland last Friday, that residents and visitors feel like tenants in their own land because a group purporting to represent Ngāti Kahu have occupied the beach, declared it Maori land and are physically threatening locals? If so, what is the government doing about it?
Mr. Speaker, it's a little outside the scope of the primary question, but I'm happy to help the member as far as I can. The Attorney-General has not raised the issue with me, but what I have had some information from the local MP. What he has told me is that any coastal occupation that is occurring and taking place is happening under the current legislation, and it's my view as Prime Minister that I expect New Zealanders to abide by the law.
Supplementary question, Hillary Calvert.
Will the Prime Minister assure all New Zealanders that they are citizens, not tenants, by ensuring that the Taipa Sailing Club will have the support, if necessary, from the police for its race day to take place this Saturday, given that last weekend's race had to be cancelled because the community's safety couldn't be guaranteed?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
It's a long way outside the primary question. I don't have any information on that except to say, of course, I expect the law.
Point of order, the Honourable Rodney Hyde.
I think the mistake that we're making in the House is, if you go back to the primary question never mentions foreign ownership or the Overseas Investment Act. It actually specifically says about people feeling like tenants, being tenants in their own land. And this is precisely the report that we're picking up on, sir. It's quite within the rules.
Well, Order, no one's ruled the question out. It's just the Prime Minister is indicating that he hadn't anticipated that kind of supplementary based on this primary and therefore doesn't have the specific information, which is not an unreasonable position. I invite the Prime Minister to finish his answer
Mr Speaker, thank you. So my point was I don't have a lot of information on that, but I do always expect the law to be obeyed and the police to enforce the law where they practically can.
Question of Dr Russell Norman.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. To the Prime Minister, does the Prime Minister agree that the kind of economic interest tests or benefit tests that have been applied to overseas ownership have not protected land falling into overseas ownership under the last government or the present government, and hence will he adopt a bright line test which says any land over 5 hectares must stay in New Zealand ownership?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr Speaker, in terms of the first point, we have recognised that there was need for change, and that's why after the review changes have been made. In relation to the second point, no.
Question number 4, Dr Paul Hutchison.
Thank you, Mr Speaker.